Welcome to Game of Attention. I'm your host, Becca Ventham. With global online retail sales projected to soar to $6.8 trillion by 2028 and 76% of retail still occurring offline, the need for integrated shopping experiences have never been greater. Today, to discuss the innovations during this transformation, I'm joined by Ian and Boran. Could you please let me know a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes, I'm what I call myself is an independent retail consultant, which gives me huge scope to do a lot of different things. But I'm primarily involved in visiting and talking about physical stores, their evolution, the trends, and the innovations within that. So I do some keynote speaking, store tours, and then consulting directly with brands and retailers about their physical space.
Amazing. And a bit of background on myself. I've been working in retail operations now for the last 7 years, both corporate and startup. I've always had a bug for building my own business. So most recently, started my own venture called Front, where we're looking to optimize retail operations by unifying and also using large language models to optimize different workflows for store operations in particular.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for being here. I think it's interesting because the reason I put you guys together was because of your experiences and the fact that Boran is more kind of the tech side and Ian is very much get in store, feel it. So I'm really interested to hear how this conversation pans out. Ian, since this is more in your remit, can I ask you the first question? How do sensory experiences provided by physical stores compare to those offered through digital channels?
I think the store has a couple of three unique advantages that none of the digital channels can do. The first one is the ability to touch and feel products, which is particularly beneficial in certain categories like being able to try on clothes. So I know that online returns is a real issue within the fashion sector. Things like sofas. I mean, I just bought a new house and I've been buying loads of furniture and I wouldn't have bought the sofas without sitting on them first. And then things like even food. Food is probably one of the lowest engaged categories for digital sales, and that ability to pick your own fresh fruit, for example. So I think there's a lot of that when it comes to purchasing a product and checking it before, but then you do have that sort of interaction opportunity as well. So beyond just that, you have human interaction. So you can talk to a member of staff directly. You can live stream online, but that face-to-face contact, I think particularly post-COVID, we sort of appreciated it more because we were denied it. And then the final thing is peripheral vision. If you go on a website or an app and you go to, say, the Nike store to look at the Air Max sneaker, there may be a few others recommended at the bottom, but you see that one thing. It's a very linear binary process. Whereas you go in the store to look at the Air Max, and suddenly there's jogging shoes, and tennis shoes, football kits. So you see more stuff, so there's a greater ability. So I think that's where the physical store has its unique advantages as compared to the digital channels.
Yeah, I think like to add to that as well. I know you mentioned around, from a technical side, big believer in terms of tech enabling, operations in particular, but still the physical operation of the omni-channel experience for customers is ever so important. I think the key thing that digital experiences brings is heightened expectation for customers now as well is personalization, right? Which at the moment physical stores need to improve on significantly. There's great technologies, from AR, VR, conversational AI as well now, picking up, and even metaverse. And Ian, I guess it'd be good to hear your perspective on, how you see these technologies shaping up the physical side of, the store experience.
Well, certainly, I think the digital can enhance that physical experience. In very simplistic terms, I often see that things like AI and other processes are brilliant for logistics, back office, stock checking, and things like that. I was in a Decathlon store in Singapore last week, and they have a robot that just goes around and scans all the shelves and does stock counting at the end of every day. This is great use of functional technology, and I think technology has that ability to be more efficient. It won't go on holiday, won't demand a pay rise, won't be ill, So I think it's a huge leap forward. But then at that face-to-face contact point, I agree. I think there's some wonderful things that technology can do to help data gathering and personalization. I absolutely agree. You can recognize someone coming in a store, tailor messages based on previous buying history, which is really hard to do in an analog way. And then you can also interact and have some of those other digital channels having a presence in store. I've seen MAC Cosmetics run their social media feed live in store, for example, or encourage people to post things on social media where you're using technology to enjoy the physical experience, but then develop it and evolve it beyond that onto the digital channels as well. So I'm certainly not against technology. The only time I get concerned is when you start replacing some of those unique benefits of the physical store. I read about a store in Dubai that was unmanned, and it was just digital screens of products that you could go in and browse. And my first thought was, why are you paying rent for your website? There was no, apart from the novelty of it, there was no meaningful reason to have that as a store. You may as well have digitized that, put it on an app, or put it on the website. So that's where I think you can go too far. But I love that interaction of how technology enhances how the physical store works, but also, more importantly, enhances the journey for the customer, because they will flit across channels without even thinking. They'll pick up, most people pick up a phone in store and they'll check prices or share pictures with their friend or go and buy it online if it's cheaper somewhere else, having tried it in store. That blurring of the lines is happening now. So I think digital has a huge role in expanding what the physical store does and adding value to it.
Sure, and I think also that the other key element is the community building. There's a lot of retailers now that are trying to, create that better in-store experience, right? But from different angles as well. Gymshark being a great example. You go into store, you can even train. I went there the other day. You could do Pilates, for example. There's a lot more now to offer in the store experience and the community building as well. So it's not just in terms of actually the products that are on the shelf, but also that sense of community and really connecting with the brand, which the online side combined with the in-store side can really create a good sense of that.
I agree. I mean, Shark is a great example of how they've evolved. I think they learned very quickly about the uniqueness of physical space, having understood digital so well, and they built community there. And I love how that store has evolved. I was quite critical when it first opened, but every time I visit, the interaction, the sense of community and build up, is a great example of a brand that's really understanding what they're doing, having been digital all their career and life, and suddenly they're now embracing that physical space. Ben Francis turns up and goes on some of the club runs. You do the workouts. They use it as event launch space as well, and it's a great way of building that sense of community that started digitally as well. So they've created a physical touch point for something that has evolved online for years and been very successful.
For sure. And I think even Amazon's a great example, right? And then moving into the physical space, how important actually is as part of the omnichannel strategy. You can't just have digital experience in its own. Sure.
No, I agree. I find Amazon fascinating. They perfected convenience and availability online. They were the ones that upset delivery, and we've now got people running around trying to deliver in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, because they started doing next day delivery. That prompted people to try and outdo them. And they've absolutely mastered that ability to browse really quickly and easily, find something, click yes, you forget about it, and it's there later that day or the following day. Their forays into physical stores are really quite interesting. They are still very binary and data driven in the way they do things. I think their most successful one is the Fresh, just walk out technology, where it sort of exemplifies their convenience and availability offer. Go into a corner store to get your lunch, buy it really quickly, and you get out. Some of the other ones I think they've struggled with, because I think they haven't always embraced the benefit of physical. The 4-star stores were fascinating, because online, that power of the recommendation, getting a rating of 4 or 5 stars, is a huge driver for sales. And in the physical store, I think they struggled to deliver that, because you didn't know what was in the store. If you're going to Nike, you know that your Air Max or your Air Jordans are in there. Why do you go to the 4-star store? To see stuff other people like, and until you walk through the door, you don't get to see it. And I saw a garden baby weed killer in a bay next to baby care. They got weed killer next to baby food, so it was bizarre. But what I love with those guys is they will gather the data in the physical space. And a lot of these physical stores are about data gathering. They're not about growing a massive bricks and mortar empire. So they're quite a unique animal, I think, in the way that they will create physical space, analyze, learn. And if they've got everything they need, they will close it down and go, right, well, we'll open a fashion store. So they're fascinating in the way that they use the physical space to just understand how a product works or how customers interact as well.
I think this leans quite nicely into, because it's kind of naturally, organically growing that way. How does the integration of omnichannel strategy create a more seamless and convenient shopping journey for customers?
Yeah, I think the key thing is about unifying the customer experience. Now, ever than before, particularly with COVID as well, really accelerating the need for customers to go online, be able to see products, and then also then want to go into store. So there needs to be a better unification of how that works together. For example, having flexible fulfillment options. You can buy online and pick it up in store. You can have same day delivery for those customers, or you can go into the store and have an extension of the inventory, actually offering the customer even more so what they have in their catalog, which is going above and beyond. This obviously fluidity enables the customer to have the best service levels out there. Apart from that as well, the integrated inventory is super important. A lot of times the issues faced is the inventory online and in store. The online members may not know exactly what's online, and vice versa. You can't find online exactly what inventory levels are in store. The best businesses that can really have real inventory updates is super critical as well. And I think the last thing is the cross-channel personalization as well. Being able to take that personalization, this data-driven online, and utilizing that within the store environment as well. So I think they're like the key things, to enable that seamless customer shopping journey. Really going back to the building blocks, mapping out what the customer journey is first, and bringing it all together through online and store.
I completely agree, Boran. I think the customer doesn't think in channels, but the problem is most businesses do. So you have separate departments with their own spreadsheets and KPIs and budgets. And I often say, you need simple things like same tone of voice, same product availability, and same price. There may be the odd unique situation if a store is open and a competitor opens over literally opposite them. They may need to be price sensitive to combat them. But beyond that, a customer may get up on a Saturday morning and go, right, I'm going to town and go shopping, and get out the app to check the price before they drive into town, and then they turn up and find it's £20 more expensive in the store. These sort of things a lot of people don't understand. Online only offers just demonstrate a lack of understanding that the customer doesn't think that in those sort of channels. They just want to go out and learn, browse, engage, buy, share, reorder. And I love what Boran was saying about, this sort of endless aisle element as well. That, I've been in a store recently trying to buy something and it was out of stock and I was about to leave. And it's no problem. It's in the store here. I can have it here for you to collect tomorrow, or I can deliver it to your house tomorrow. And they completed the sale when I would have walked out if they weren't aware of the stock availability in the store in the next town or in the distribution center, and have that ability to communicate and then complete the sale as well. So these are the sort of things where, like you say, it should be almost one stock level. You have some in this store, but there are others available and accessible within hours or within 24 hours. And what you're doing is you're ensuring that you're not losing the sale. And that's one of the most important and beneficial parts of understanding the whole ecosystem of your availability and delivery, because the customer will keep buying from you.
I think that's reminds me of Argos, because Argos do this quite well. And I will often go with Argos over Amazon because I know that I can just drive into town and pick it up and I can have it like that and I don't have to wait. So regardless of the price, if I need it and I need it now,
Yeah,
I'll use Argos.
that's interesting, because in theory, that's a click and collect offer.
Mhm.
That anyone can and should offer, but it's obviously sort of got into your mindset that this is the one that works for me.
Yeah.
And its services. I'm old enough to remember the good old days with the catalogue and the little pens, writing it out and sitting there waiting. Whereas I go into an Argos now, which is normally in a sales business.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was an analog website. In that respect, it was a wonderful sort of pre-internet version of what we do regularly now.
Yeah. I live in a village in the middle of nowhere. So my options are not, I'm not in London where I can just get whatever I need immediately. I do have to wait for a lot of things. And Argos is kind of that solution in a more rural area.
I found it fascinating because I've just moved to a village in the middle of nowhere, and I get Amazon to resolve that problem. And that's the joy of humans, is we're all different. What keeps retail fascinating is the humans are, I say, fickle, inconsistent, and emotionally driven. So the customer that loves you one day will be frustrated by you the next day. You haven't done anything different. It's what's going on in their head, a row with their partner, or they got a pay rise, or the weather's good, or they're about to go on holiday.
I find that if I'm in a rush, like I know that I need bread, I'm about to do the school run, I've got about 10 minutes, and I'm like, I've had a hard week. I know what I'll do. I'll pick up that, and I'll pick up that, and I'll pick up that, and a whole basket full of things. And I don't do that online. I go straight for what I want
Well,
online.
that's because, I don't know what you think, Boran, but online is, like I say, there's more functionality because you don't get the smell and the taste and the feel. You don't get those emotional triggers as much online. Whereas digital really perfects that abilities here. And this is what I can do, and I can get it to you straight away. Did you feel the same about that, Boran?
100%. Look, I still actually go to the grocery store. It's probably because of my background, and I'll not even just checking the stock on the shelves, but actually, seeing the colleagues in store still excites me.
Yeah.
But the physical touch, walking up and down the aisles and exploring, how it looked actually merchandised on the shelf. For me as a customer, I just find that super, engaging. We tried to balance over the last, couple of years of, ordering online. I really like, the speed and efficiency of it. Sometimes, going to the store can take 2 hours out of your day. The grocery category in particular, it's a very challenging one to actually, bring those senses out online. If you're looking to actually feel and touch, there's still a long way to go, I think, especially for that category online. Even though there's been talks, for ages that retail is there's gonna be no more stores around, but I think forever and more there will always be a combination of both store and online presence. We just, it's in our nature, to go touch and feel. For you, like Becca, going back to why you're going to Argos, it's, Ian said, right, you can order Amazon to your door, but you probably just want to go into that store environment. And then while you're in that Sainsbury's and you purchase that, you're probably going to buy a few more items, from the Sainsbury's side as well. And then you combine that with like a day out with your children, it becomes a whole experience in its own. And I think that's the, I guess, differences, but also the challenges, as Ian mentioned as well. As a consumer, buying decisions are all emotional, but there's so many different factors that go into it. And retailers obviously need to equip themselves even more so with the data they have. But the issue is, when you find is that retailers are super data rich, but very insight poor. But again, be authentic with your brand as well is the most important part, and how you, portray that between a voice and so forth.
I think it's interesting as well about what you've both said about that desire to be in a store environment, because the number of times I've stood in a Tesco checkout and it's taken so much longer because it's the old person in front of me is having a chat, because it's probably the only interaction they get that day. And a lot of them, and I see them a lot, you kind of see the regulars, and a lot of them go in every single day to shop just to have that face-to-face interaction. And I assume it's the same for people who work from home. I work from home. I don't know if you guys are permanently from home. But that's the only time, one of the only times of the day that I get out and I'm around other human beings.
Yeah. I think COVID, like I say, amplified that appreciation. Lockdown, we've got to learn the value of our social interaction because we were denied it. And it's interesting you talk about the checkouts, because I was just talking the other day about a Dutch retailer called Jumbo, a supermarket, and they've introduced a slow aisle. It's the opposite of the Aldi fast aisle. Jumbo have a slow aisle specifically for that sort of target audience. So it's the least productive aisle, but probably the most appreciated one. And it demonstrates empathy. It's way beyond the spreadsheet. Now, it's difficult because the retailers are looking at their profit levels. But when you see companies like Jumbo, they're going, this will actually pay off. The feel-good factor, the news, the fact that, I'm talking about it and spreading the word, and other people will be when they learn about it. It has an effect because you then have a better view of them as a business, from a social responsibility point of view. Whether you use it or not yourself, you get the halo effect from these sort of considerate actions. Another one I have to talk about is toilets in retail. The number of retailers that have a sign going, "We don't have toilets," and I'm going, "Yes, you do, because you've got you've got staff. You imagine if you flip that round and created amazing, cool toilets and a sign outside going, please come in and use our toilet, because people would be going, that's great. Now, I suggested that at a conference recently. All these retailers were shaking their heads, going, "I'm not cleaning our flipping toilets." And I'm going, well, you have to clean the shop floor, and I know it's a different kind of cleaning when it goes wrong, but it's that forward thinking of no one else is doing this. It's a point of difference, and it shows empathy. And these are things you can really leverage, particularly in the physical space. Considerate staff going, yes, come and use the product. Don't worry, I'll sort that out afterwards. It's customer service. And it will pay off in leaps and bounds. I'd love to see a few retailers embrace this.
Boran, if I could ask you this, in the race to optimize operations, getting away from toilet talk, because I know we went down a bit of a rabbit hole there, with digital workers, are retailers compromising the authenticity and warmth of human interactions, do you feel?
Yeah, it's a great question. To be honest, I still think we're in the early stages of adoption of AI in the retail space. So it's still too early, to say if retailers are compromising the. But if you ask me, what the impact would be of the adoption further afield, if business were purely focused on bottom line improvements, then for sure, there's a great potential for compromise. For example, utilizing chatbots, automations as well, can really make things, for the customer feel like there's a lack of emotional intelligence and empathy as well, which is super important. So then you've got a lesson in, satisfying customer experience. And then also like the nuances that also come with, the store experiences as well. There's only so much that, a trained model can deliver. However, bringing in such optimization though has its benefits. As we've already seen, from some businesses, quicker, more accurate responses. You don't want to be waiting, in a chat line for 10, 15 minutes if that question can be resolved much quicker. But again, the models need to be fine-tuned. It's not a one-size-fits-all, where at the moment solutions have been sold that, may not be retail specific, but trying to be adopted for retail as well. And it doesn't understand, the intricacies not only for retail space itself, but also the specific business and its customers and the tone of voice that it needs to be delivering on as well. So for me, like the key thing is balancing the efficiency and warmth. You need to have both. It's not a case where completely ignore Gen AI and don't focus on optimization of operations. However, that human interaction also needs to be there as well. The routine tasks, for example, are stripped away from the operations. The individuals can be focused on more high-value tasks, for better customer service, interacting and engaging, and being more present on the shop floor instead of the back office. So that the hybrid model, for me, and in the space, work, the best way. But it's important, even the toilet chat that we had earlier is that retailers shouldn't be solely focused on the bottom line. It should be a case where you go to the other extremes, that, you start to strip operations fully. And that will obviously take away from the true human engagement side of things, which is super important to this day.
I find it really reassuring that someone who's launched a technology-focused company is talking about that emotional intelligence and recognizing. Because, chatbots, my experience with chatbots has been eminently frustrating. I moved house a couple of months ago, and the process of disconnecting from suppliers, I lost the will to live, where chatbots were in a loop of convenient automation. And I think they will get better. I think AI will help that. And when you can't tell, then that's when it's succeeded. Because when you simulate a human, you better be bloody good at it. Otherwise, it just slacks off a company seeking convenience and cost saving at the expense of customer service. And you see so many examples of that. And AI is still in its learning curve. And I know retailers embracing it. You can't go to any conference without 80% of the conversation being about AI. And everyone's excited about the opportunity. But I often say, well, you have to be careful. We had this 15, 20 years ago when everyone offshored their call centers. It's saving money. And then you'd have a guy ringing up, you could barely speak English, going, hello, my name's Kevin, how can I help you? And the first thing goes, your name is not Kevin. And there's absolutely no way your name is Kevin. So immediately your credibility shot. I can barely understand what you're saying. You're reading off a script, and all you've done is alienate. And I think AI is going through that phase of the learning curve at the moment. And you see on social media these stories where people interact with an AI robot, a chatbot, convince it to turn on itself. I think it was the DPD, the delivery guys, and the guy he said, do you think DPD is rubbish? And he goes, no, I'm not allowed to comment on that. I'm giving you permission. So then the robot then starts slagging off the company it's representing. And I take it with a pinch of salt. It's humorous to watch, but I understand it's part of the learning curve. And I think I love that point you made, that it needs to work with the analog aspects. The technology and human digital interaction with humans needs to support and enhance the human interaction with humans. And you get a 1 + 1 = 3 result then when you get the balance right. Too many people are leaping onto technology and going, I can save money, and they end up, cutting their own throats, because what happens is they save money, but they alienate customers because it's either obvious cost saving or it just disconnects the experience. And you end up, much worse off than if you sort of kept humans in. And I think the real skill is knowing where you put a human into a process and where you can then start looking at technology to simplify, duplicate, expand, and create real cost savings. But there are certain things where you're way better off investing in that annoying, fickle humour, because they will deliver a better value until AI gets to that scary sort of Skynet level. Then you're wondering whether we're all going to have jobs in the future. But I don't think we'll ever reach that. We're certainly a long way off. But it is fascinating to see how that process is now evolving. And obviously AI has the ability to learn. And once you get the generative AI, rather than it going out to look at all the stereotypes, that are out on the internet for reference, we're going to see some interesting development. But, humans still like talking to humans as well.
100%. And I think it's the case with the best retailers so far that are adopting Gen AI, actually utilizing it for internal use cases first before exploring it outwards. I've heard some horror stories as well. I know the DPD one. Well, there's also like airlines as well in the US. There's been some use cases where the AI starts to hallucinate and then give recommendations. Actually, it's not even company policy as well, which then you can put yourself into a legal issue. Hence why it's good to test internally first of all, and also utilize it for your workforce, because there's less risk in that sense.
Yeah.
But it's a case of training the model. It will get there. It's just a case it's still very early on.
Yeah.
And people are rushing, that they want to be seen as the companies. It's got AI. You say every conference now I go to in the retail side is AI this, AI that. Even the company may not have AI. It's saying I'm AI empowered, even though may not be the realities of it. But it's super important that, again, you de-risk yourself as a business as well, because there's a lot at stake if it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
And to me, the PR side of things is, pretty brutal if it doesn't go well. But as mentioned, it's not a case where AI, will replace jobs. We need to see it as complements, the human skill set. Emotional intelligence will always be a key part of buying decisions, in the journey. So combined, with a model that takes away needs, crunch numbers, gives you the data and insights, and combined with, the human's emotional intelligence, super powerful. I think we also need to open up and not be too, concerned about the impact of AI, and actually start to embrace it and the opportunities it will provide, and in particular for retail where the margins are so thin, there's a lot of opportunities, to improve the sector fully if utilised correctly. Retail media, so much opportunities in that field to really, improve the customer experience, but also the top line revenue as well for retailers, and then be able to reinvest into the sector even more.
Yes. I mean, I had a really interesting experience in Chicago a couple of weeks ago in the Sephora, the beauty store. And they have skin scanning technology where they place this sort of handheld unit on your skin. It does a deep scan of your skin, which is quite an enlightening process when you see the results. But it will then, it will rate your skin. Is it dry? Is it oily? And things like that. But then it will start recommending products. But they very importantly then have very well-trained staff that then talk to you. So it's not the technology and you go and buy. The member of staff interprets the findings, then talks about your daily regime, what you want to do, where you want to go. And it was one of those best examples I've seen of very clever technology combining with a well-trained human. And it really was a combination of the best of both worlds, because the staff were really knowledgeable, very engaging. And you suddenly saw a bit of fun and theatre that then translated into insight an action, and then a purchase at the end. And that's where I would like to see a lot of the customer facing technology, where you're going, right, where do we need to apply the technology? Where do we need to apply the humans? And understanding that the two work together, because that technology didn't replace staff. It just allowed the start of the sales process to use technology in a fun and engaging way that the human then still delivered at the end.
Yeah, I had the same experience when I went to Dreams not so long ago to test out some mattresses, and they had this like camera essentially lay on the mattress, and it tell you exactly what type of mattress you need. But obviously, that was a great interaction for me, from a technical side. But then thereafter, the assistant on the shop floor telling you in more detail and giving you that insight, walking you around, very knowledgeable on what they were doing.
Yes.
You can see, like, again, like that great utilization of the data-driven side, they have to hand, and I think that's the best way to go about it, right? You train a staff how to use the tools, but you're not expecting them to know every single knowledge detail out there.
Can I ask you, Ian, how can retailers effectively blend human touch and digital innovation to create seamless and emotionally engaging shopping experiences? I know that we've kind of touched on it, but it would be great to kind of get some points and what stores you think is really nailing this already, starting to get it right.
I often say to retailers, I say, this snappy is a line which I appreciate. I say and walk out the room, and it takes you 18 months or £5 million to implement. But I said, you need to understand as many of the different shopping missions for your space, why people come to shop. And once you can understand that, which again is a minefield in saying, right, to really understand all those different reasons people come to shop, you then need to develop your solution in a cost-effective way to cover as many of them as possible while making a profit. I'll say that, I go home and they're sat there with this. But it's true, and if you can understand that, that gives you the starting point to go, okay, where do we apply technology here? Where do we absolutely need to keep the human contact or a physical interaction? Once you understand those reasons, because some of them will be getting in and out as quickly as possible, others will be engaged. Using a supermarket, for example, you can have someone comes in at lunchtime and they want a meal deal. That is a low friction, high speed, I've got a 30-minute lunch, you want to grab a sandwich, a packet of crisps, can of Coke and get out, which is why most retailers put that right at the front of the supermarket, because people will not go looking for it. Then you come back on a Wednesday evening and you're doing your family grocery shop, where everything costs a fortune. So you're seeking price, value here, and deals. But then you may be, for example, having your boss come round for dinner at the weekend and want to hit for a pay rise. So you want to cook a really nice meal. And that's about quality. So that's the same person in the same shop 3 different times: speed, price, quality. So that's just an example of trying to understand those missions. There are times when you can charge anything you like for a product. I think of the man on his way home who's forgotten his wedding anniversary sort of scenario. You'll pay anything for the flowers or, the box of chocolates, You don't always know those. But, if you understand those scenarios, you can then turn around and go, okay, where can technology help improve this process? Where can the human aspect and the analog and the hands-on and the demonstration and the sensory experience help? So I think that's most important. You asked for an example, I just gave it away with Sephora. That was the immediate one that sprang to mind. That was a wonderful example. Without that understanding, then I just say you're guessing. And I always say retail is a very expensive place to start guessing. By all means, test and learn. I often say to retailers, you are so lucky for 2 reasons. One is all of us are shoppers, so you have no excuse not to think like your customer. And I often say to people, take your Tuesday morning meeting head off and put your Saturday afternoon shopping head on. And you're in that mindset. And the other thing is, if you have a physical space, I cannot think of another industry where you come up with an idea, you put it in your own space, your target audience comes to you and gives you money so you can find out if that idea works. The nuclear submarine industry would love to have that test and learn opportunity, So we, and if you think like that, it should be a test and learn. So if you can understand the missions and have a go, try it, but don't be afraid to fail. I used to run innovation workshops, and I used to say, if you do an innovation properly, half of it should fail. Otherwise, you're not trying hard enough. The failure is where you learn probably more than the success, because the success, you don't know whether you're 10% successful or 100%. Until you go 101% and it crashes. So set this environment up, test and learn, and see how it works. And that's my approach, getting retailers to get out of their comfort zone and dedicate a few stores to things where 50% of it might not work, tends to make them a bit uneasy. But that's the way you find out.
And I agree with Ian. Like, it is a case of like taking that risk. Failure is super important to take on board, but it's not the case with obviously all retailers, right? Some are less risk adverse, and I think that's where we don't see that engagement and the good blend of human touch and digital side of innovation. Like, I'm going to go back to Gymshark. Every time I've gone to that store, you can see from them, like, they're really understanding what their customers want, but also actually how the physical space should be working with them as well. And every time I go in there, every month or so, the store like changes and they're continuously changing the layout and so forth. I recently spoke to the visual merchandiser in the store as well. She's actually allowed to lay the store out as how she sees fit based on the data. She's given freedom to go ahead with it. Whereas beforehand, a previous employees that she's been in the space for 15 years, they're pretty much like a template. You're doing this layout, across all 50, 100 stores you have, across the country, and some of them may work in London, may be completely different, up north and so forth. So I think that's super important, as he mentioned, being open for that risk and trial and error as well. You're not going to know exactly straight away, but it should also always start from the customer, right? You should know your customer really well in the first place, and then move from there. So it's personalizing experiences, using data, and then making sure that human interaction is more tailored, bringing in more interactive store technology as well, right? We're not saying retailers straight away have robotics and so forth, but it's even those little things that I mentioned around Dreams or Ian and Sephora, where customers are feeling more immersed in terms of the product itself in store as well, is a good touch. And then the final bit is like the emotional engagement as well. Training staff, and we've highlighted this already, like how to use those digital tools to enhance the workforce as well, so that the customer feels like they know them more, and that reports build even more so. But also like giving them more options and ability as well within the store creates a good blend between human touch, digital innovation, and then engaging that customer experience, and then tying that all in with improving the community side of things as well. I think that word of mouth is still super important, right? And as Ian was highlighting around the toilet experience, we're going back to the toilet again, but like, how are you actually making yourself stand out? If you're a luxury retailer, you're outside of the shop, is actually drawing people to come in and take photos and so forth. There's still opportunities to take. The retail store is no longer a destination where you only go to pick up an item. It's much more than that, right? You may not even purchase that item within the store. That purchase may be done back online again, but you just wanted to see how it is face to face, and then continue that journey online thereafter.
I've just remembered one other example after you put me on through, which is Nike. Their major flagship stores. I mean, I went to the store in Westfield, London last year. When I arrived at Westfield, I had a buzz on my phone. It was the Nike app going, "Hi Ian, welcome to Westfield. We look forward to seeing you in the store." Very clever, geofencing, knew I was in the store, in the mall. I was still 400 meters away from the store. And you can go to their House of Innovation stores, and you can use the app, scan products and learn about them and even purchase. But also, if you want to try something on, you can request it, and it already knows your size. From your previous purchases, your size is ready. And I was trying out their app in Chicago recently, and I was scanning individual shoes in in-store mode, and it was highlighting the ones that were in stock in my size, because it knew my size. So it was highlighting if it wasn't in stock, it wasn't there. Now, one criticism is when I scanned one and it was out of stock, they weren't recommending an alternative, which I thought was a missed trick. But it was still, you still go, "Oh, blimey, yes, yeah, that is my size. How do you know?" And you go, "Of course, because I purchased from you before." And that's a great way of connecting some of their digital activity in the physical. And Nike are brilliant at utilising that.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this kind of pans out, and we can only hope that the retails will keep the human at the center as the technology gets more and more efficient and evolved. But yeah, it's been great having you both.